Hello folks, Jason Solis here, creator of the Perk at Work comic that you are being drawn. I have it right here, I'm watching it. If I look down, it's because the computer's down here, the phone's up there, and that's how I am recording this. If you're new to my channel, right now what I'm doing is I'm showing videos of me drawing these comics, and most likely are going to be sped up so that they're in a 10-minute nice little window there. If you like what you see, please press the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. I am the creator, the illustrator, and writer of Perk at Work. It's my web comic. I call it a web comic, even though from the very beginning, I created it as a newspaper comic, and I always wanted it to be in the newspapers. And maybe that can still happen. We never know. In any case, this particular comic that we are looking at is called Book and Bar. The gag, and by the time this is out, you'll be able to see it. I'll have a link to it underneath in the description, so you can go see the final comic if you want to see it before you look at it, me drawing it before this video, by all means. However, I will also place it at the end of this video so that you can read it at that point. I will go over what it says because I'm going to talk about it, just so you know. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I wrote it. So the first panel, and I'll just walk it through so that you can see what you're seeing. The first panel is, and this is with Cal, and Cal is coming to meet Perk, and they're at a bar. Perk is reading a book, and Cal asks him, he brought a book to a bar, and Perk's like, oh, well, I was just, while I was waiting for you, I thought I'd read. It says his book's called Fire Ash. He says it's a dystopian young adult novel about these teens who are trying to survive while the earth is being burned up. And he's kind of happy about it, like, oh, I love this book. And the third panel, Cal says, a kid's book? Says, I don't think this is the right place for that. The bar is the right place. He says, what will the ladies think? In the last panel, there's a girl that comes up to Perk, and she's like, oh, is that Fire Ash? I love that book. Have they made it to the point where they're at the ash mines or the ash ruins, and basically really excited about seeing a guy read that book. Young adult novels are super popular, of course, and not just with kids. The biggest of all of them, of course, do I have to say it? Harry Potter, of course. But others such as, now Harry Potter's more of a kid's book, I guess, a middle grade book, but it turned into a young adult later on because it spanned that lifespan, or those grades, I should say the age. In Harry Potter, I think it's just years, first year, second year, such and such. However, books like the Hunger Games or Divergent or any of those things, they're liked by adults as well, and I believe there's a reason for that. And we can get into that in a minute, but let me get to talk a little bit about the comic, and then I'll get back to the young adult novels. So one of the things I wanted to note is that if you look at the second panel, and then you look at the final product, if you look at the second panel right now, what I was drawing, and then you look at the final product, you'll see it's a little bit different. Perk's holding the book a little bit further away from him. That was a goof. I messed up when I was drawing, and I knew that the physics didn't hold up. And that's one thing that I like, is to at least have some semblance that the physics are going to work. The book, he was holding it too close to him. It just didn't fit. I didn't model anything. I was just going by what was in my mind. I fixed that in Affinity. I would say Photoshop, but I don't have Photoshop anymore. It costs too much, and Affinity does a lot of the same things Photoshop does. Little tip for folks who are out there who are thinking, hey, I want to do a web comic, I want to draw, I want to do the same thing you do, but I can't afford Photoshop. Affinity, just get Affinity. It works. The same thing with GarageBand or whatnot. Now, say if you're just going to record your voice or whatever, you get Audacity. There's a lot of great programs out there that are cheap or that are free. Another one, if you have an iPad, Procreate is pretty good. Although I have found that doing comics in Procreate is pretty difficult because of the text. It doesn't quite work to do the whole thing. You can, but it's a little ungainly. It's not really the way it's what it was meant for, I guess, or maybe I just don't know it that well. In any case, the whole point is that I fixed it in Affinity. Why do I say that? Because too often we think that if our comic strip's not perfect, it's not worth doing. I know I felt that way, and I strained for so long to try to make my comic strip perfect. And the more I try to make it perfect, the more rigid it started to look. And it still does at some points because I try too hard. I know that. I realize that about myself. And something I'm working on. That's something I'm working on. But just if you're wanting to draw, especially comics, just let it flow. And it really is a gag at the end of the day. And can you get the point across? When it comes to comics like this, like gag-a-day comics, if you're not familiar with a gag-a-day is something that's not necessarily a storyline. It's just that one comic could be funny, and you can pull it out, cut it out, put it on your cubicle if you work in a cubicle, and it'll touch on a subject or whatnot. You don't really have to know what happened in the characters' lives per se. So that's what Perk at Work is. Now there are some storylines that kind of are woven in, but they're nothing that it's not like a soap opera, if you will. In any case, the whole point is that if you're doing a comic strip, especially like a gag-a-day, or even not, just know that if your story is good and you're trying, people they're very forgiving. They like the fact that you're growing, also that you're able to put things out there, and it may not be perfect. Now, as long as it's not sloppy, and as long as you don't do the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, that drives people crazy. It drives me crazy, even with my own stuff. But just know that people, if you're making them laugh, if you're giving them something good, if you're giving them a great story, they're okay with the art if it's not perfect. Like a lot of folks you'll hear that say that it's better to have a great story and okay art than great art and an okay story, and that's true. And when I say story, it's basically the writing altogether. So I'll get back and I'll touch on the young adult novels. My buddy, Jay Lopez, he called me the other day and he told me that there's a new Hunger Games prequel, I guess, that's coming out. And both he and I are, adult men, and we like the Hunger Games. I liked reading it. I like the movies, and I like young adult novels, mostly because, well, they're fun, of course, and I'd like to write them, and I have written one, and I like to write more. I love the genre. I think there's a lot you can do with it, because it's just right on the borderline of really being serious, but also having that sense of mystery and fun and fantasy in the world, and hopefulness and idealness. I guess idealness is not a word, but that which is ideal. I'm at a loss for words. But in any case, they're fun to read because they're a crossover between being a kid and being an adult, and I think that's why it's almost like that Venn diagram where you're an adult and you're a kid, and then right in the middle you have young adult novels, and I like that. You can still put goofy humor in there and still be taken seriously in a sense. At least I believe, and when I read it, I'm okay with that. The last thing I'll say about this comic is that I don't think we should really be too worried about what people see us reading in public, as long as it's not anything that's super graphic or weird or odd. You don't want to be like sitting there at a coffee shop reading How to Pick Up Girls. That'd be kind of odd. Nor do you want to be at anywhere that's inappropriate to be reading whatever you're reading. And if it's that graphic or bad, it's always a good idea to just not read some of that stuff. But if you do, just do it. I'm not telling you to do it at home, but it can make people uncomfortable if you're reading really graphic stuff. Regardless, you want to read Hunger Games, read it out there. You'd be surprised at people who've read the same stuff. I got a phone call, so it interrupted. Basically, just like and subscribe if you like what you saw, and I'll be doing more videos like this, and just stick around for the final product, and let me know if you like it. Visit me at perkatworkcomic.com or redgraycreative.com.